To end DACA, that program that protects undocumented immigrants who were brought to the United States as children, so-called dreamers, from deportation. Here to discuss, Eugene Scott, Washington Post reporter, Caitlin Huey-Burns, national political reporter for Real Clear Politics, and David Drucker, our political analyst in Washington. So nice to have you all here. And Eugene, let me begin with you, because the president, when it comes to North Korea, has not minced his words. He hasn't detailed what he would do, but he threatened fire and fury, right? If there were even another threat from North Korea. Now there's been another threat from North Korea saying they will wipe the U.S. off the face of the earth. What plays does the White House have in its playbook at this point that could actually work?
Well, he said actually he's trying to figure that out himself. So we had Defense Secretary Mattis saying that he was going to be talking to the president to explain what the options are. We have to realize that this whole issue is still relatively new to the president. And so the approach that he is taking is not based on having a deep amount of knowledge on these issues. And so the response...
Yeah, but his team does.
His team does, but the reality is they don't know yet what they want to do because they're still trying to figure out what it is that North Korea is doing. What we do know, though, is that they are not responding to Trump's words saying that he needs to back down, and they don't seem to be as fearful as he would hope they would be. So
there's some new reporting, Caitlin, that's interesting from our White House team in D.C. that the president's increasingly frustrated with President Moon Jae-in of South Korea. He called it appeasement policy in his tweet yesterday about South Korea. He called Shinzo Abe. They spoke twice in the last 24 hours. He took him 30 hours to call Moon. He's threatening, according to the Washington Post, to pull out of the trade agreement the U.S. has with South Korea, which would infuriate South Korea. That would really please the president's base. It certainly would.
Right.
But what is the end goal there? And will it be effective to anger your one of your most significant allies in the region?
I think this issue, to your point, represents the way in which Trump's campaign promises are coming to reality here with these foreign conflicts. Remember, he campaigned, of course, on withdrawing from different trade agreements, for talking tough on trade with other countries, from withdrawing U.S. presence around the world. So all of these things are kind of coming to a head here in North Korea. And in many ways, the president is left with little options, very few options, and experts say that there are no really great options left. The president is also learning kind of the diplomatic routes here, right? He thought he could have a relationship with the Chinese president, thinking that the Chinese president could be tougher on North Korea. Lots of people said that that wouldn't happen. He's realizing that now. Trade, of course, was an issue in his relationship with the Japanese president. Now these kinds of relationships have changed and morphed. But lots of people were very concerned about that threat, kind of that chiding of South Korea, when that country is going to be a really key ally here.
So, David, listen to what former CIA and NSA Director Michael Hayden said yesterday on State of the Union, talking about two things that he fears when it comes to how the president is dealing with the North Korea situation. Let's play it.
I fear two things. Number one, the stray electron, all right, the tweet that just goes out at 5 a.m. and it unintentionally creates effects that make this go to a place we don't want it to go. The other one is this, all right? We just got into a duel with the North Korean chairman, with Kim Jong-un. If we had a choice of weapons, I think it was a bad choice to get into a hyperbole contest with that kind of guy. Mr. President, this is not a manhood issue. This is a national security issue. Don't let your pride get ahead of wise policy here.
I mean, this is a guy who worked in very key positions in national security under President Bush and President Obama. What do you make of that?
Well, you know, this administration has been very interesting. I don't think you can fault the administration at all for trying to change the game when it comes to North Korea, because three successive administrations that have come before this one tried all sorts of carrots and sticks. All sorts of diplomatic efforts, none of which has worked, and it's one of the reasons why we're now in the position that we're in, having to deal with this. Right, but what
Hayden is saying is pride. He's worried about pride getting in the way here. Legitimate concern?
Well, of course it's a legitimate concern, because with President Trump, there's always an issue of who's the alpha male, and that seems to be a very important thing to him. What I would say, though, with the administration is it seems to be, in a sense, like a two-headed operation here. On the one hand, you have General Mattis and General McMaster, the National Security Advisor, sort of running a very conventional, careful, strategically cohesive pushback, trying to keep our alliances solid in the region, trying to make sure North Korea knows that there are consequences to its actions, and that's a very necessary part of trying to deal with this. On the other hand, you have the president who is empowering his defense secretary and his national security advisor to do this, and I think that's important, but on the other hand, obviously likes to speak freely and does so over Twitter, and I think has done so in a manner which has undermined the very good work that his administration has tried to do to deal with a very difficult problem. There's nothing wrong with ratcheting up the pressure and getting more aggressive because years of diplomacy have failed. What's important, though, when you do that is to set the bar in a way that you can deliver. And when you talk about fire and fury and don't necessarily deliver or think about how North Korea is going to react, when you talk about ending all trading relationships without the intention or the ability to actually do that, the message that sends is there's a lot of bluster and not a lot of delivery, not unlike the way, in a sense, President Obama dealt with the Syria issue, which of course became a very big problem.
Setting red lines. On DACA, we've learned, our reporting from multiple sources, guys, is that the president on Tuesday, it's believed, is going to put an end to DACA. He's going to give it a 6-month delay, a 6-month window, and say, Congress, you figure it out. It's not an immediate deportation we're expecting of these about 800,000 young people who were brought into this country by their parents illegally. But you've got, Eugene, Paul Ryan saying don't do that. You've got Orrin Hatch. These are all Republicans saying don't do that. You've got Florida Congresswoman who is a Republican, Elena Ross-Layton, saying in very stark terms, after teasing Dreamers for months with talk of his great heart, POTUS slams the door on them, some heart. These are all Republicans. Now, this would please his base, but it's going against so many leaders in his party. Why?
Well, I think he realizes that his base is the group that has been with him and has gotten him this far, and he's really loyal to them. But the reality is he certainly needs to expand his support beyond them, because even their support numbers for him are decreasing. And if he wants to be reelected, he's going to have to listen to so many of the Republicans who want him to keep DACA in place.
But what's interesting, Caitlin, is he could have said, we'll listen to his words when he utters them, whether it's today or tomorrow. But all our reporting is he's going to give this a 6-month delay, a 6-month window. Now, he could have ended DACA immediately. Instead, he's not doing this. Is that him essentially conceding, I want to end this for my base, I promised I would, but I don't want this on me, Congress has to fix it?
Right, leaving a lot in limbo here. I mean, the immediate deadline, of course, is these AGs who are pushing the president on this by making a decision tomorrow. But when you talk to members of Congress, they've had a lot of time to come up with an immigration policy pertaining to those brought here illegally as children. As we've all followed Congress, it is very difficult to see how they would be able to get a bill together, and not only consensus on a bill, but to get this process moving on this issue by, January, February, when that deadline would come.
When they voted on it in 2010, you had President Obama in place, right? So he could issue executive order. Now you don't.
Right. And a lot of Republicans disagree with the White House making policy on this. So that's kind of the issue at heart here.
Thank you
Poppy,
guys very much.
One interesting thing here, Poppy. This is President Trump is essentially saying he would sign this if they could actually get it done. I think we've lost sight of that in a lot of this analysis.
It's an important point. Thank you all for being here on a lot of important issues. Even though it is a holiday, there is a lot going on. David, Eugene, and Caitlin, thank you very much. Ahead for us, Houston's mayor says most of the city is now drying up from Hurricane Harvey. Now the recovery effort and the fight to fund it continues.
Choose to go, to indulge your curiosity, explore a new road to see where it takes you. Meet the leaders who change the game. No matter where you are, no matter what the currency, when you run the numbers, they may surprise you, but stay your course. You're on the path to success. CNN Money.